This is part 2 of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which will include Newfound Gap, Clingmans Dome, and Cades Cove. Please go to Hipfig's Roaring Fork Travel Guide for information about the Roaring Fork section of this Great Smoky Mountains National Park. In this video, we'll share our visit to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, located on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee. We'll provide directions, times, what to see and do, and of course, we'll share our own experiences to help with your visit here. Keep watching this video until the end to see the beauty of this national park. If you like this video and or you find it helpful, make sure to like us and provide a comment. We really do want to hear from you so that we can keep improving our content. Welcome to Hipfig. If you're a travel enthusiast, then join our community by subscribing to this channel. This is the Beautiful America Travel Guide series for visitors to U.S. national parks, monuments, and natural reserves. This episode is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park Travel Guide for new visitors. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is one of the largest protected lands in the eastern United States at 522,419 acres within the Great Smoky Mountains, which is part of the Greater Blue Ridge Mountains, which is part of the larger Appalachian Mountain Range. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is so large that it's contained within two states, Tennessee and North Carolina. The border of these two states runs through the center of this national park. There are three main entrances to the Smoky Mountains National Park: Townsend, Tennessee, Cherokee, North Carolina, and Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We came through the Gatlinburg, Tennessee entrance. The town of Gatlinburg, as you can see in this video, is a resort town full of attractions, restaurants, and hotels. Consider staying here for easy access to the national park. There are 4 visitor centers at Oconaluftee, Cades Cove, Clingmans Cove, and the main visitor center from the Gatlin entrance is the Sugarlands Visitor Center. The Sugarlands Visitor Center is located at 1420 Little River Road, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We drove through U.S. Highway 441 south and followed it to the end of town of Gatlinburg to the main national park entrance from the Tennessee side. After passing the entrance sign from the Gatlinburg entrance, we drove about 2 miles more to the Sugarland Visitor Center. By the way, if you don't have a car, the city of Gatlinburg offers a trolley service to the Sugarlands Visitor Center and the Elkmont on the Tan National Park route during summer and fall for only $2. There's also mini tours and 4-wheel tours which are available from Gatlinburg. Once we entered the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, we followed the signs for the Visitor Center and Townsend Cades Cove and made a right into the parking lot of the Sugarland Visitor Center. Hey, good news! You won't find any pay booths at this national park. It's absolutely free to all visitors due to an agreement with the state of Tennessee when they deeded the land of the national park with the federal government restricting any tolls or fees. Did you know that in 2019 the Great Smoky Mountains was the most visited national park in the U.S.? Judging by the crowds at this visitor center, I can believe it. Once we parked our car, we visited the restrooms located outside of the visitor center. By the way, there's also a water filling station located near the restrooms to refill your reusable water bottles. The Sugarlands Visitor Center is open daily except Christmas, generally from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the peak summer-fall months, and a few hours less in the winter, usually 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We got in line to talk to the ranger about hiking and picked up a map. The line was a bit long, but the volunteer was helpful. At Sugarlands Visitor Center, you can go on a ranger-led program conducted seasonally, check out the exhibits, and a 20-minute film about the park. There's also a gift store where you can buy books and souvenirs, and also a drink vending machine. You can also find the Backcountry Information Office here as well. After getting our map, we were ready to explore the national park. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park boasts 384 miles of roads, mostly paved. We decided to drive up the 3,000 feet through the Newfound Gap Road to the Newfound Gap Overlook. We stopped at various overlooks along the way filled with Cove hardwood, pine oak, and northern hardwood forests, only to appetize us for what we could find at the end of the road at the main Newfound Gap Overlook. You'll see lots of cars parked alongside the road because they're enjoying the many hiking destinations within this park in this area, particularly the Charlie's Bunyan, Alum Cave Bluffs, Andrews Bald, Rainbow Falls, and Chimney Tops, which are some of the more popular hikes. If you're an avid hiker, we suggest downloading the copy of the park's trail maps or getting a copy once you're there from the Smoky Mountains Association. There's also an online bookstore that you can purchase it on. As we got closer and closer to the end of the road, parking was really full on both sides of the road and in the parking lot, but we got lucky and found parking there, and we walked to the huge overlook. The Newfound Gap Road is the lowest drivable pass in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It has an elevation of 5,046 feet, and the scenic drive is absolutely beautiful. It goes from Tennessee up to the mountains into Cherokee, North Carolina, and this 31 stretch of mountain road is the only fully paved road in the park and only one that travels to the park center. The Newfound Gap Road straddles the line between North Carolina and Tennessee for most of the length through this park, and once you're at the overlook, you're actually in North Carolina. The Newfound Gap Overlook has historical significance. The Rockefeller Memorial is here, where former U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt formally dedicated the park on September 2, 1940. The U.S. government at that time was not allowed to buy land for national park use, so private donors raised $2 million, and then the Rockefellers donated an additional $5 million in 1928 to purchase the land for the national park. And so that's why you have the Laura Spelman Rockefeller Memorial there. From the Newfound Gap Overlook, which has an elevation of 1,539 miles, we could see the mountain pass located at the center of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in the southern Appalachian Mountains. I love to see the veil of clouds lingering above the thick and fragrant evergreen spruce forest at Newfound Gap. It's just breathtaking. From here, you can also see the Appalachian Trail and a number of other small hiking trails which start here. After our time at Newfound Gap, we decided to drive to Clingmans Dome Visitor Center. Just south of Newfound Gap is the 7-mile Clingmans Dome Road, which climbs up 0.5 miles to Clingmans Dome, the highest peak in the Smoky Mountains. For your information, Clingmans Dome Road is closed December 1st to March 31st. The traffic and parking at Clingmans Dome was very heavy, so we decided to visit it earlier the next day. This section of the park is particularly popular during the summer peak months and can have a lot of traffic, so just be patient or come earlier when the traffic is less. Once at the large parking area, there is a 0.5-mile steep trail to the observation tower, which is the highlight and considered the top of the old Smoky Mountains. We drove back down on the Newfound Gap Road to Sugarlands Visitor Center to use the facilities before we continued on our trip. Again, this is a really good place to refill your water bottle. Once back on the road, we went south following the signs for Cades Cove Scenic Loop, which is an hour or more drive away from Sugarlands Visitor Center. Along the way, we stopped along the rivers enjoying a cool dunk of our feet and a short picnic before heading back on the road. Cades Cove preserves the human history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and particularly the European Southern Appalachian settlements here. At one time, there were thousands of small farms throughout the lands of what is now the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which had an emotional toll to settlers who were displaced when it became a national park and who had to walk away from their homes. A favorite country song by Dolly Parton is Smoky Mountain Memories. The refrain goes like this: Smoky Mountain memories about my home in Tennessee. Yesterday keeps calling me home. Mountains rising in my soul, higher than the dreams I've known. Misty-eyed they cling to me, my Smoky Mountain memories. Visiting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you can see and feel why it would be so sad to leave this place. We continued on the road following the signs for the Cades Cove Scenic Loop. By the way, the Cades Cove Scenic Loop is closed in the morning to vehicles on Wednesdays and Saturdays until 10 a.m. Cades Cove is a relatively flat valley surrounded by mountains and is one of the most popular sections in the Great Smoky Mountains. It's here you'll find the best chances to view wildlife such as wild-tailed deer, black bear, coyote, groundhogs, turkeys, raccoons, skunk, and other animals. Unfortunately for us, we arrived in the hot part of the day and there were no animals to be seen. So if you really want to see animals, make sure to go in early morning or later in the afternoon before dusk. The Cades Cove Scenic Loop, which is also called the Cades Cove Road, is an 11-mile one-way loop road which circles the cove. It'll take at least 2 to 4 hours to tour Cades Cove and longer if you hike some of its trails. There are various points of interest along the 11-mile road. We stopped at various sites and hiked a bit also. One of the places that we stopped at where there's remnants of homes settled in the cove between the times of 1812 and 1821. There's designated parking on the side of the road and in small parking lots. There are several trails here, including the 5-mile round-trip trail to Abrams Fall, and there's a shorter Cades Cove natural trail. There's also longer hikes to Thunderhead Mountain and the Rocky Top, which was also made famous by a popular song, and they all begin here at the Cove. For your information, you can also camp in this area. Please check on the National Park Service website for more detailed info. By 1850, the population of the valley had reached over 685 new families. In those days, it wasn't uncommon to have a household have 10 to 12 children. As the population grew in Cades Cove, of course you needed more and more public services such as schools and a post office and of course churches. We stopped at a Baptist church that was built by a prominent family from Cades Cove. What was of particular interest to me was when we went into the cemetery section of the church area and you read on the dates of when people lived and died, and it's pretty amazing. We continued along this road and we stopped at several other places where we could see a working grist mill, barns, and old log homes that have been preserved and restored. For your information, you can pick up a self-guided tour booklet available at the entrance of the Loop Road for information about the buildings you'll see in the Cove and the people who lived here. By the way, you can also take guided horseback rides at Cades Cove. You can call them at 865-448-9009 for more information. Also at the Cades Cove riding stables, they offer an 1.5 to 2 hour hay ride around the Cave Cove Loop Road. So call them again at 865-448-9009. You can also take a carriage and wagon ride at Cades Cove. It's 20 to 30 minutes horse-drawn carriage or wagon ride on the park trail. Halfway through the Cades Cove Scenic Loop Road, there's the Cades Cove Visitor Center, which is in the Cable Mill section of the historic area. The Cades Cove Visitor Center is open daily, generally from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., except at Christmas. There are indoor and outdoor exhibits of southern mountain life and culture, including a cable mill, a grist mill, which operates spring through fall, and the Becky Cable House and other historic structures there. There's also a bookstore, souvenir shop, and public restrooms. Because this is one of the more popular areas of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, we recommend trying to get here during the weekdays and not on the weekends, because it's traffic can be really heavy and this is one of the more popular spots. After our time at Cades Cove, we exited the national park from the Townsend, Tennessee exit to our next spot. While we were Exiting from the Townsend, Tennessee entrance of the national park, there were lots of campsites that we saw near the river. We also saw a lot of places where you can rent tubes to go tubing in the calm rivers here. Look for the parking lots along the road. That's where your entrance point is for the tubing. I've been to many national parks, but the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, it really does linger in my memory and certainly is one of my favorites. Reserve at least 2 full days or more to enjoy this historic and natural wonder. Happy travels! Go to hipfig.com for more information, or go to our Hipfig travel channel on YouTube and be sure to subscribe for regular updates.